Okay, well, my name is Alexander, and want to welcome uh, Paul Rima on my channel, First Alliance Media Project, where we cover many good things like patriotism, ethnic nationalism, traditional family values, and good connection among communities, people. And welcome to the channel, Paul, and I want to ask to introduce a bit about yourself.
Yeah, nice to be here, Alex. I'm in Liverpool at the moment in England. This is my hometown. I'm quite long in the tooth, as we say in England. I'm 58 years old now, so I've seen quite a lot. I've been interested in politics for many decades, certainly since the 1970s. In fact, there was a seminal moment in British politics in 1968 when a famous Enoch Powell made a speech about mass immigration. It was called the Rivers of Blood speech, where he warned the dangers ahead of England of the change in the population. And that was a wake-up call for our whole nation. And it was what stimulated me to get interested in politics. And really, I got interested in politics in 1970s. I got active, standing for patriotism, against mass immigration, and for a lot of the agenda that Donald Trump has championed in America. I mean, my agenda was make Britain great again, put Britain first. Of course, Britain is one of the great civilizations of human history, the British Empire. I mean, I know that Russia covered a fifth of the world's land surface, but the British Empire covered a quarter of the world's land surface. It was bigger than Russia. It was 13 million square miles. So we were a great empire, and we've got a great pedigree. And of course, we gave birth to the United States as well, which was a continuation of British culture. So I value my inheritance in this country. And we've had a lot of attacks upon our heritage and our history, especially from the left, the Marxists, the globalists, the internationalists, who sought to undermine us at every turn. But we've had champions. Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady. I think she was just before your day, Alex. She was a good friend of Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah,
and was very important in the downfall of communism and the new age of freedom with Ronald Reagan. So I was a great follower of Margaret Thatcher. But then we had ended up with a social democratic government in Britain, which opened the floodgates of mass immigration, which denigrated our history, and which took us deeper and deeper into a project called the European Union, which really frightened me. So I stood against that.
All right. So did it happen after Margaret Thatcher? So she was not involved in that? Because I thought she introduced council housing, or didn't she?
She sold council housing. The thing is, the European project is an unfolding project. We joined in 1973, but it started off just as a trading alliance, but developed into a state, a federal state, which meant that our freedom and our sovereignty was being curtailed. So there was a battle on. And of course, we voted to leave the European Union in 2016. Nigel Farage, he led the campaign. I was very involved in that campaign. And I've been involved in the politics on the right for, as I say, since 1976. I had a small interlude on the left between when I was 16 and 21. So we're looking at 79 to the mid-80s, when I explored Marxism. I became very interested in Russia's history. And I did a doctorate at Cambridge University in the history of the Soviet Union and Stalin's Russia, Joseph Stalin. So there's a lot of depth there. I'm sorry?
It's very interesting, and that period, still many historians in Russia, they can't agree on anything on it, really. It's very questionable sort of period. The really two parties trying to show their view on it, impose their view on it almost. It's hard to agree among certain people.
Well, it was a great triumph for Russia in a sense, because they defeated the Nazis and they expanded the power and sovereignty of Russia right across Europe, right into the heart of Europe, which had always been the goal of the Tsars. I mean, they called Stalin the Red Tsar. But on the other hand, he was a brutal tyrant and a mass murderer on Hitler's scale. Yeah, so he was a very dangerous character.
That's what historians do not agree. Some people think it was other people like Leo Trotsky, who actually was, and Lenin, who was sent by Americans and from Switzerland, from Berlin, they were establishing it. But yeah, let's not argue about that. I'm just saying it's
Mm.
controversial still for
Oh
some.
yeah, the source of it is questionable, but no doubt they ruled Russia for 82 years,
Yeah.
72 years, 72 years.
Well, yeah, it was maybe another one for another conversation. I want to focus on England because, as you said, it occupied quarter of the planet of inhabitable, Earth. And what is interesting to me is how you see this immigration, and to the extent I remember our conversation. So where's the borderline? So where does it stop? Do you think England should be for English people, or is it like Britain for British people, or like any people come in, how many people you accept to come, or how do you see it?
What what you have to realise, Alex, is that Britain has not been invaded since 1066, a Norman invasion from France. So that's almost 1,000 years of independence. In fact, there hasn't been a battle on English soil since 1685. So that's like 330, 40 years without any violent conflict on English soil. So we're a unique nation. No other nation on earth has experienced that peace, that security, that continuity that England has enjoyed. And from that base, we became the global superpower. Britannia ruled the waves. It wasn't just a quarter of the world's land surface we controlled, we also controlled all the water of the world. And even though we've had the retreat from empire and we gave up our empire, we gave India independence, the African nations independence, Australia and Canada split off, we've still enjoyed a controlling soft power over the entire globe. The globe speaks our language, English. The globe mimics our institutions, our Houses of Parliament. The globe has always looked to England as a reference point on how to develop and progress. We had a great philosopher called John Locke, and he wrote down, he codified human rights. He created this whole idea that we have a constitution, which led to the American Constitution, and we have rights as individuals. This is England's contribution to the world, and it was a magnificent contribution. It shaped the whole globe.
Well, this
Now, even though we've
you could
go on,
call this
Alex.
political is ruling, because many countries, other countries, they don't see Britain as a uh, they see it as a conqueror. They lived alone, and when Britain came, and there are a lot of questions how that influence. I mean, the many people were killed with that influence, isn't it? Weren't
No,
they?
because you see, the thing about the British Empire, it wasn't expanded through military means. That was very rare. Most of the time, it was just an expansion of influence. And many local rulers were more than happy to come under the British flag because it meant peace and security. It meant they were protected from their enemies. I mean, the British Empire was a very benevolent institution, and it was not dependent on military power. It was successful because it had the consent of the ruled. Now, we've this is really important in forming the English mentality. We are a benevolent nation. We like to help others. It's part of our Christian culture, our Protestant culture. We think we have a mission in the world to help others and to improve others. And so we've always reached out with a hand of friendship to other peoples. And we've always had brought something to the table, something positive. So we saw empire as a way of spreading the Christian faith, of developing these countries industrially and economically and commercially, and also giving them our institutions, rule of law, parliamentary debate, democracy. We thought we had something really positive to contribute. And these other countries absorbed that. I mean, India is the biggest democracy in the world. And the reason for that is simple. Its roots were in the British Empire. Now, as we've had the retreat from empire, and we gave these countries independence. It's not like with the French Empire or with many other empires where countries have fought for their independence. We actually gave away the empire. We actually gave these people money and institutions when we left. So we wanted to keep a good relationship, and we've maintained that good relationship. But the empire has not given up on England. It all wants to come to England now. It wants to come and inhabit our space.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
a
are a
different
small island.
situation.
Yeah. We are a small island. And of course, when the empire come to an end, there was various conflicts. There was one in Uganda where the Africans kicked out the Indian Asians who the English had brought over. And we welcomed the England Asians into England itself. Of course, in the West Indies, there were islands like Jamaica, Barbados, all the islands of the West Indies that we controlled. We gave the people there the right to come to Britain and work and settle in Britain. And they came. They came in their millions, you know. And this has transformed our nation. It's transformed England. And it's made England a multicultural, multiracial nation. And that security that we felt, because England was our home, which we could export across the whole globe, that security has been undermined through this. And we now feel threatened because not only we're more comfortable with Christians coming to our country, but other faiths, such as the Islamic faith coming into Britain, has represented a cultural challenge to us and a cultural threat.
Yeah. So as you say, to summarize this, and as long as people come into Britain, they follow the same faith, Christianity, you're saying that you feel they're welcome and they don't challenge current situation, the status quo in England. Is it correct, or is still some limited?
Now, obviously, it's a question of numbers. Once you go past a certain mass, any group can represent a threat because they can exert their own will and their own power. And we've reached those critical masses, you see. Our cities now have been transformed out of all recognition. If you go to London now, although it looks like an English city, the population has been transformed, the demographics have moved on, and we have a Muslim mayor in London who's wanting to take down statues of our British heroes, who's wanting to eradicate our past, and who's wanting to change the culture of London itself and of England. So these people are actively opposing us now and trying to undermine us. So it's very dangerous.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That doesn't sound good. I don't think anyone would want that happening to their country, to their motherland.
Well, I mean, you know, Russia lost a lot of people in the Second World War
yeah.
in defending their soil, you know, and you will no doubt have memorials to these people, places, almost sacred places where you remember the war dead. We have a place in Whitehall in England called the Cenotaph, where we remember our glorious dead. Now, Black Lives Matter attacked the Cenotaph in London in June. They tried to set the flags on fire. And we went down there, many of us patriots, thousands of us, to defend our sacred monuments. But that's the nature of the dangers we now face.
Yeah, that's a disaster happening. Yeah, it's this last year, and I think it's the scale of it is getting greater and greater, and yeah, it must be stopped. There is no respect for the people in England who built the country, and because I lived in England, and I can say a lot of good words about the English people, the way they treat each other, the mutual respect, diplomacy, and the way they behave. You say this, England enjoyed several hundreds of years of no war situation. There was no war, and people were able to develop generations over generations, good manners, and treating each other well and thinking about the world and themselves. They just had spare time, and they didn't have to. Yeah, they had spare time. They didn't have to work for food or something. Like happened to other countries where there was a terrible conflict, like Russia as well. And that has been.
Yeah, we were prosperous. We were prosperous, and that enabled us to be. We have a thing called politeness, where we say thank you and please, and we open the door for strangers, and we just we call it fair play in England. We've got to be fair to each other. It's the golden rule of all religions, really. Treat other people the way you would like them to treat you. I mean, this is the essence of Christianity. Of course, Islam doesn't follow that, which is a bit dangerous, you know. But we offered the hand of friendship to people, and we created what we call a social peace, a social tranquility, a social harmony in our country. And you can see this in the English villages. They're very beautiful villages, you know. People take great pride in their villages. They have lovely floral displays, and there's a lot of old cottages and castles preserved. They got a lovely history to them, you know. They're very nice places to visit. The English countryside is very special. So it's a place of peace and a place where we can go and relax, a place where we can be restored in our soul. But this sense of home that the English created on their island is being lost now. And we see in the big cities, there's a real outbreak of crime, especially amongst the Africans. Knife crime, drug crime, theft, street theft, to change the atmosphere, it's become very dark in these cities. There's a lot of policing problems. So there's social problems that are emerging all the time. We've reached the point now with the numbers. We're looking at over 10 million immigrants where we can't absorb these people into our society. They're forming their own ghettos, their own colonies, and they're not giving up their culture and their way of life to absorb themselves into England, although they've come to England to enjoy the fruits of our country. And many of the Africans, especially, are very conservative people, actually. You talked before about traditions and family.
Yep.
They value this. But there are radicals, leftists, Marxists within England who are trying to foment conflict and using that conflict as a basis to acquire power, just like we see in the United States.
Can we say that can we partially blame this, you know, the ruling class at the moment in England, these political parties? Do you think they're any part of it?
Well, we've got this ideology of globalism, where political power has been given up to international institutions like the European Union, but above all, the United Nations and all the spin off groups from the United Nations, like the World Health Organization, like the World Bank, like the International Monetary Fund. And then you've got these global companies, these multinational corporations, and they want to control the situation now. They have their own ideology. They want a borderless world. They want one world where England will simply be plot number 17 and Somalia will be plot number 15 and Poland will be plot number 17. They want us all to be homogeneous. We call it the global homo, one world. And they think that by eliminating our history and our culture and our traditions, they're bringing forth a brave new world where we're all together in harmony. Of course, it's a total lie because that's not human nature. People form themselves into groups and tribes and faiths and nations, and they fight each other and they struggle for power.
Yeah.
What they want us to do and what they are actually doing is we are giving up our inheritance for what? For this global world, which is a threat and not a blessing.
This new framework doesn't work. It doesn't give you much, you know, means to express yourself. You know, there is no universal culture. It's just almost nothing. If you mix and get rid of all the different views, you'll have tiny thing at the end. You can't connect based on it. And I think that's why people want to keep the inheritance and the traditions. And I don't believe that hundreds of different nationalities can mix well in any place.
Well, they're reducing it to the lowest common denominator.
Exactly, yeah.
English, the French call English now globish. The language they use has only got like 1,000, at the most 2,000 English words now, international English. But the real English that we speak, our national language, has 30 to 40,000 words. It's a very rich language, you know. It's very difficult, obviously, for foreigners to understand it comprehensively. But they're trying to simplify everything and dilute everything so that other people can be absorbed into it. But I have a great sense of loss about that, you see, because what was glorious in our past is going to be taken away. And we're going to be put into a future where suddenly I'm competing with Somalis and Iranians and French people, even Russians, in the job market.
Yeah.
I mean, my children are competing with these foreign nationals for places at universities. And what we should be privileged in our own country, as you know, Russia belongs to the Russians, England belongs to the English. Our forefathers created this nation for our benefit, for the benefit of future generations of English people, not for the world to come in and take it over, you know. And
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
for free, absolutely. And I sort of explain it with the concept of the host and the guest. And when you say it's a fair play, I still feel it's not really fair to give any foreigner the same rights, because it's your ancestors, your fathers, forefathers, they built the country, and my fathers, they built like Russia. And I mean, it's not fair really to give equal rights to people coming from outside, giving them all for free, housing, something else. They still should be like, I think Saudi Arabia, they have this concept of a native people, and foreigners will never get the same rights.
Well, it's not only unfair, it actually takes away our rights. Because now, when we go and vote in elections, we're not just having differences of opinion amongst the English, we're getting millions of foreigners coming in. We're seeing this in London, especially with the Islamic bloc vote.
Yeah,
They're coming in and they're competing with us in elections and defeating us. So we're losing elections in our own country to foreigners. This is like a form of colonialization, but there's no
yeah,
benefit to us. They're not bringing anything positive to the party. I mean, they have very little to contribute. As you say, they come here with the mentality of take, take, take. Now, it's not the same with Europeans. A lot of Europeans came here to work and to learn English and to contribute to this country. But I mean, the people from Africa and Asia, they have very little to contribute. They have very few skills, and they're quite happy to sit on our welfare state. They cannot believe, well, they know now, they can come to this country, they get free housing, they get benefits, welfare benefits, they get free banking, they call it free money, they get
yeah,
free healthcare, of course, they get free education. And they'll abuse that to the hilt. They'll take everything they can. And you see, in a welfare system, the way the resources are rationed is through queuing. You have to wait your turn to get health treatment or to get a house. They're jumping the queue. And we, the native English, are being pushed to the back of the queue. So we're giving away. I mean, the thing is, we've been so prosperous in the past that we don't, we think we can still overcome this, but it's reaching a scale now and it's costing us so much money that it's starting to impact the nation. People are getting very concerned.
yeah. I feel really bad to see what happens to the English world, because it is a beautiful world. I've seen it with my eyes, and the people live really high standards, how they treat each other, and they, behave and treat the foreigners and people from other countries as just for granted. They give the same respect almost. And yeah, I feel so. It happens everywhere. I mean, all the countries are suffering this destruction by globalist forces. And yeah, now people are standing up against it, because yeah, it doesn't work for anyone. Even like temporarily, it works for people coming to England, foreigners. I mean, another 100 years, these globalists may think to get rid of them as well. So it just a short-term thing that doesn't work for anyone, I believe. And I think truly, all the immigrants, they really want to live peacefully in uh, their own homeland, because they're used to that environment. They don't really there war or conflict. That's why they come into England. But really, it's sort of it's not natural really for anyone to come to another country. It's all orchestrated. I mean, I
Well, we
feel
see
so.
in Europe now, we see in Europe the emergence of nationalist parties or patriotic parties, such as Le Pen in France or
Yeah,
the Alternative for Deutschland or the Swedish Democrats or Salvini in Italy or, the Vox Party in Spain. And these parties have been very successful and they've managed to acquire quite a lot of political power, a growing political power in their country, because people are concerned about the way things are developing, that the nation state is being undermined. Because it's not only mass immigration and a demographic change, It's the loss of political power, because
Yeah.
these globalists have institutions which have sucked away power from our nation state, and they will impose agendas on separate nations, and you have to follow that agenda. But these people who are making these decisions within these globalist institutions and even within the European Union are not accountable. They're not democratically accountable to the people. We don't know who they are. We
Yeah.
don't know how they're making the decisions, and we cannot influence their decisions. They're simply opposing their agenda upon us. They want a borderless world. They just take away the borders without our consent. They want a one world government. They just take political power without our consent. So there's an incipient rebellion now amongst
Yeah.
the native peoples of Europe, the nation states, to fight back against this. But what really concerns me is that our right to politically protest, our right to politically speak out against this process is being undermined and it's being attacked. So they bring what they call hate speech laws. You
Yeah.
can't say like you don't like immigration. You can't say that you don't want England to be an Islamic nation. Suddenly that's hate speech and it's not allowed. And you
Yeah.
can't criticize politicians. It's like living in a totalitarian system. We always say, and you'll know this, it's like being in communist Russia. If you dissent, you go to the gulag. This isn't our tradition. Our tradition is a tradition of liberty where we speak out. We have not had a secret police in the past. We've not had a KGB or a Gestapo. We've had the freedom to express ourselves. So we're having these freedoms removed from us, and we're in a bit of a state of shock about this because culturally, it's not British. It's not the way we do things. In America, they have the Constitution to safeguard the right of free speech. But what we're finding is the big tech, the tech giants, they're now censoring speech.
Yeah.
We got this cancel culture now in the universities, where universities used to have freedom of debate and freedom of discussion. If you speak what they regard as hate speech, something which opposes their agenda, you get cancelled. You get pushed to the margin, pushed out. So this culture of liberty, which came out of John Locke, which came out of this notion of human rights, is being taken away from us by globalism, and we're very concerned about that. Very, very concerned.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think in all the places and in USA, finally, it's in the eye of everyone, seeing that like the white males are being attacked by, they just put it into the laws, and in universities it's like there are quotas now for non-white people, and the job they're going to support non-white businesses. And how does it sound in America? It's just I couldn't I couldn't believe that so far they would get to this point, really, because they indirectly they sort of promoting diversity and inclusion, which is complete bollocks. So this is just a
But what they're
disguise.
doing, and this is really, really frightening, is that they're constantly condemning white people. These
Yeah,
terms like white supremacy,
yeah, yeah,
white privilege, these are all negative fingers pointed at the white man. And then they're changing our history. Suddenly we're the villains of history. Instead of seeing the European peoples as having created modern civilization and all the glories of modern civilization and all the benefits of modern civilization, suddenly we're responsible for everything which is wrong in the world. And they say, "Oh, you were slaves, you enslaved the Africans." Well, that was 200 years ago. We actually ended the slave trade. It was the British who put an end to the slave trade. Slavery had been part of human history for millennia, for thousands of
yeah,
years.
yeah.
I mean, in Russia, you had serfdom. In Europe, they had serfdom, but in Africa, they had indigenous slavery. Islam was a great slave owning civilization. We were the first people to say, no, we don't want slavery. Slavery is wrong. And we fought against it, the British, and we stopped it. We used the power of our Royal Navy to stop the international slave trade. But instead of appreciating that and saying thank you, we're actually just condemned. We're condemned as the former slave owners. So we're constantly being condemned by our media, by our universities, by our politicians, simply for being who we are.
Yeah,
This is an attempt to undermine us and to break us down. Why? Because they want to dispossess us, take us out of our own nation, and give our nation to a replacement population in the third world.
Yeah, this is what they say. Discrimination is positive discrimination. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
This the lady who runs the police in UK, Dick, her surname, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Dick Cressida, yeah.
Cressida Dick. I think she talks something about positive discrimination, about not taking white police officers, but
Yeah.
taking. Yeah, it's all wrong. Maybe I won't spend a bit of time talking about what good things happen. I know it's not the end of a good story, but people are waking up. People are, supporting each other. They're getting together. They form in some communities, and you said like thousands of patriots. I didn't know about it. Went to defend this the sacred site of the war heroes in England.
Memorial, yeah.
Memorial.
Cenotaph.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the people are
Well,
getting
and of
together.
course,
How do you find
we've
it?
had
Sorry.
Donald Trump in America. We've had Donald Trump in America. Now, his agenda was America first, make America great again, lift up the stars and stripes. He was a patriot, and he rallied the American patriots. He rekindled the American spirit, and he brought millions of people on board on his agenda. Of course, 75 million people voted for him, which was a record vote. But Joe Biden beat him. But we believe, and I sincerely believe, that that was a fraudulent election, that election was stolen by the globalists. I mean, Joe Biden said we have the most inclusive and extensive fraud operation in history. Joe Biden actually said that.
Really?
Now, on the night, they stopped the count when Donald Trump was winning, was on his way to victory. They calculated how many ballots they needed to stop Donald Trump, and they simply brought them in by the truckload after the elections had stopped. And when Trump took it to court to get this overturned, the court would not listen to the evidence. They would not listen to the case because the court had been intimidated. And the media was supposed to, raise the flag about this, the red flag, and say, look, there's something bad going on here. The media went along with the coup, with the fraud.
Yeah.
They've been bought by the globalists. And so it was a dramatic defeat in America, even though Trump won. And we see now the globalists are in power in America again. So that's a big setback for the patriots. But within Europe, there are a lot of patriot parties, and they are growing in strength. And people are conscious of what's happening. They don't like what's happening, even though the media is trying to manipulate them all the time to somehow accept multiculturalism. The media is trying to present it as something positive, and anyone who challenges it is called racist.
Yeah,
they just
racist.
Insult them.
Yeah, it's a label.
Anyone who loves their country and their history and their liberty
Patriot.
are called Nazis. Are called Nazis.
Yeah,
I
domestic
mean, it's absurd.
terrorists. Yeah.
Yeah, these insults are absurd, but this is what we face. And of course, they target women through the television, children at school, and they brainwash these people. There's a process of manipulation taking place where they're actually going against their own interests. And we need figures, charismatic figures, national heroes who can rise up and throw this off. But it's a real battle now. It's a real battle for survival.
What I think is a good thing happened last year with all the bad things happened is I think it's in everyone's eye. They're not hiding anymore. They're just bringing all the bombs and they're attacking it in a straight way. They pretended for so long that they're just good, like Facebook. They're just good social companies, social media. But now they're all coming with their censorship, and it's in the eye of everyone. And with this election, I think everyone can see it if they want now, and that makes people change their mind. And the resistance should grow in numbers. I think last year a lot. Resistance movement.
What happened in 2016? When Trump got elected and when the British voted to leave the European Union, was that people used social media as the vehicle to connect and to express their opinions and to build opinion, to present their platforms. And it was a fantastic vehicle for awakening the people, for the populace, for patriotism. But of course, now social media is heavily censored. So at every turn, I mean, Trump's banned off Twitter. People get banned off these platforms for simply making patriotic comments now. I mean, we tried to create alternative platforms like Parler and Gab, but they've been closed down as well. People have gone onto Telegram. I mean, we've looked to Russia, VK as well. We've used these different alternative platforms, but it's difficult now to struggle because everything is over the social media now. In the old days, when I was involved in politics, the newspapers were the key element of propaganda and communication.
Yeah.
And every party would have their own newspaper and they would sell that newspaper and it would become a vehicle to rally around. But now it's all got to be done on social media because that's where the focus of the people is. But that's being heavily policed. So it's difficult to get the message out. But you can't kill the internet. You shut
Yes,
down one vehicle,
still
another
there.
vehicle opens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for people initiative to, because it's for people to do that. It's not that difficult or impossible to create small platforms to get connected. And yeah, there is a lot of censorship, but the internet is still there. It's for people to get together, unite, and use it in the way they like. And on the Texit thing is like Texas want to exit US. They have a large group, I think 500,000 people.
Secessionists, yeah.
Don't know exactly what they're doing, but I think the main reason for them to do that is to say we don't like what's going on in America. I think that's why they get a lot of local people together saying like, just we want to live how we like. And it's there's no, I mean, you don't need to be a very advanced person just to have respect to other people and other nations. And I think even in this Texas, there's people of different other nationalities who just share traditional values. It's just really traditional people who share traditional values against these globalists whose values are, I don't know, are just evil. I think everything they promoted evil or will be evil tomorrow, even if you can't see it now. You can see it through it today.
Well, it's anti-Christian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they tried to present us as xenophobes, somehow we hate foreigners and we're hostile to foreigners. We're not. We just want to defend what's of value in our own societies.
Yeah.
Um, I personally enjoy foreigners, and I like the company of foreigners, and I love the variety of the world, and I embrace all peoples, and we can learn from each other. But that doesn't mean that our nations are taken away from us and that the other people have the right to just walk all over us. No, we must stand up for ourselves. Now, when we assert ourselves on the social media or politically, we have to have a goal, and that goal is to win political power, to win elections. Elections are very, very important. Getting people in parliaments are very
Yeah.
important. We need to have control of the state machine, state resources. That's why the likes of the Vox Party. You see, in Europe, I don't know what the system is in Russia, but they have something called proportional representation. You get the seats in relation to what percentage of the vote you won.
Yeah.
In England, we have a first past the post system, which is different. But so it's allowed populist parties to emerge in many European nations and to grow rapidly. I mean, the AfD in Germany went from 0 to 98 seats. It's got a real voice in the German Bundestag. We've seen Salvini and his party, the La Liga, has become a dominant party in Italy. And the Vox Party in Spain came from nowhere, literally nowhere, 14,000 votes to 4 million votes.
All right.
And suddenly they're the
That's a lot
third
of
biggest
good
party
news.
in
I didn't
Spain.
know that. I didn't know that. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. These are all become big parties now. So they've joined the mainstream and they're challenging for power. You start off with a populist party, but it has to grow. In Britain, we had UKIP, which went from a small group of people and they got 4 million votes and they forced the government to have a referendum and we voted to leave the European Union. But in England, it was the politics was focused mainly on leaving the European Union. Whereas in Europe, it was focused more on national sovereignty and immigration. And we have to go back to the nationalist issues now, to
Yeah.
reinvigorating the nation.
Yeah. I think every nation and ethnicity, they have rights to live on their own and accept as many foreigners as they like. It's just a given right as a human right. You can choose. it's your right to decide where you want to live. You know, it's multicultural city, or it's just your English city, or Russian city, or French. I think it's a basic human right, and sort of talking about it is difficult now. Is labeled wrong as racist, so, but it's not. It's not. It's just basic human right, how I see it. How do you see the numbers? How do you see the process of English patriots uh, getting together? Because you can't do it alone. You need many people, and it's
Well, of course, in the past, we've had big parties. You know, we've had the British National Party. We've got groups within the Conservative Party who are patriotic and who are rallying the nation. Yeah. I'm sorry, Alex. Someone's
yeah,
arrived at the door. I'm going to have to suspend this for a moment. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry
That's.
about that.
I'll just make a pause. Yeah.
Encourage each other and help each other. Um, not just within Britain, but across the Western world, really. I mean, this is why I'm highlighting what's happening in Europe, because that encourages us. You know, at the moment, of course, we've had this COVID
Yeah, it's all
pandemic.
planned. Yeah, to
We're not sure
disintegrate.
what to make of it, whether it's real or whether it's false, what they're using it for, what's the point of these facts, whether it's a global conspiracy,
Yeah,
why the virus was released, what was it, what's the agenda there. But it's thrown everything out of kilter over the last 18 months. Everyone, of course, is being forced to remain in their homes. So a lot of networks have broken down. A
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of we had no political elections last year. So everything has been stalled, but still the immigrants are coming in Dover. The illegal immigration of Britain is continuing even during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, you can see on Facebook and on Twitter, there's a lot of anger still bubbling up constantly. And a lot of people want to address these issues. And once the pandemic is over, we're going to see a real explosion in political activity again.
How do you see the? I think the biggest challenge for people to get together, because I'm from like Russia, no, it's more communal spirit among people. I'm not talking about community just in a sort of in a soft way. You just being polite, you celebrate something together, but really strong community spirit, because it goes against a bit of Western type of individuality, and my home is my fortress. You need to really have common budget, shared budget. You need to chip in and do something together. And this is something to learn. And I find people don't know how to do it really. Can you say something encouraging in this area happening? Can you see something?
Yeah, because I mean, I've been involved in organisations in the past. I mean, the British actually can be very collectivist when needed. They can come together. We're very sociable people. But we look to Russia in many ways. We see in Russia the revitalization of the church, the reclaiming of your history, the
Yeah.
promotion of traditional moral values. And we see that as a great beacon of light in this world, because the globalists are pushing the exact opposite. They're trying to destroy our faith. They're trying to destroy the family. They're trying to destroy traditional morality. And they're trying to atomize us, isolate us as individuals.
Yeah.
And we've got to fight against that. There's a culture war going on. I mean, we've seen Trumpism really was a rebellion against this globalist agenda. So, yeah, there's a battle taking place. In Britain, we had an election in 2019, and people elected a conservative government because they thought the Conservatives would fight for the Patriots, but they've been very disappointing. But
Yeah.
we hope that.
Carry
Go on, Alex.
Carry on. Yeah, yeah. I want to say that I find it challenging for people. I wish to get this collective spirit. I mean, it should grow. I think tenfold, hundredfold. Much more people should learn how to unite and get together and be active politically together and grow now. Because I think many people are struggling. They still think in the like in a small scope, just of their household, community, village. So that's I think yeah, should be more examples to share who is successful on that, because this is really stops what this what I see stops the whole movement, because people don't know how to unite and get to promote this together.
Leadership is very important. If you have a dynamic leader or a strong leader, it would really, it's a catalyst for people to become active.
All
I mean,
right.
I'm really impressed by Marine Le Pen in France, and she has persevered over time. She has, she's so well known now, and she's such a beacon of light to the French, and she's rallying the French for this next presidential election, and she is now favourite to win it. So this
Oh,
is
really?
rekindling the French spirit. Yeah, she's
That's
favourite now.
that's good news. I would say some good words about Russia, because it is still there are a lot of unrest happening, but what the traditional family is still well defended in Russia, and people don't buy all this globalist what's that abuse of this traditional family, all the forms they're trying to promote recently. So it still stands really strong in Russia, and yeah, I'm glad to hear that it actually shows as a beam of light, a big for you.
Well, not only Russia, we see that in the whole of the former communist bloc. I mean, Poland has been very successful in maintaining its nationhood and defending its borders and in reinvigorating its national culture. I
Yeah,
mean, Poland is another beacon of light. And the same thing's happening in Hungary with Viktor Orban. Again, we see this rekindling of national culture and national consciousness. And so the Eastern Europe, I mean, communism protected a lot of these nations from
yeah,
the virus of liberalism.
yeah,
It kept the collective identity, and it's allowed these countries to rekindle their nations again. And they are uh, great examples for the West on how to defeat globalism.
yeah. And I think that's a great next move, is to unite West and East, because still people think in these Cold War terms, but I don't believe it. I don't believe. I mean, people in America and Russia and in England, they just all good, decent people. They have so much in common. It's just the government globalist play. They try to make a battle between countries, but
Mm.
it's nothing to do with people. I think we all should unite on these traditional values.
Well, we have this common inheritance of Christianity, don't we? We were part of Christendom.
Yeah,
I mean, Russia, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, Spain, many of these countries were formed in a battle against Islam to defend the Christian nations during the Crusades. And now we need to rekindle that spirit of defending our civilization from external threats and internal threats. We have to rekindle this notion of Christendom. We have a deep cultural unity which goes back 1,000, 2,000 years. And we should use that as a source of strength, because it's given us our traditional morals, it's given us the family, it's given us our traditional rights. I mean, so it's been the bedrock of our civilization. We have to return to that. In a sense, as Europe, we have to look backwards in order to go forwards. We have to re-embrace our history. This is called roots, rekindling our roots.
yeah,
You see, what the globalists want to do is cut us off from our roots.
yeah,
And a tree without roots dies. We need those roots to be strengthened.
yeah. That's a good framework you mentioned. Yeah, there's definitely, yeah. It's good to unite all the people from all over the world, and don't, think in states conflict, Cold War, Second World War. No, no, it's not our war. It's not my war. I mean, even my ancestors, my granddad was involved, but we still should, through this all these globalist lies and this globalist virus that attacks every country, we should get rid of it and find a way to live together. It's not that difficult, but to find that virus and get rid of it, that is difficult. I wish us best of luck with that.
We need each other, Alex.
Yeah,
We actually need each other because we have external enemies and internal enemies.
yeah,
The
true.
patriots, I mean, because you're a Russian patriot, I'm an English patriot, French patriots, Italian patriots,
Yeah,
American patriots. We're brothers. We're
yeah,
not enemies, we're brothers. The
yeah,
wars of the 20th century, the First World War and the Second World War, were a great mistake. They were
yeah,
brothers' wars, where brother fought brother.
yeah.
And
I
it was
feel
a
really
waste of
sorry.
life.
This, yeah,
Yeah.
shouldn't happen. And Germany, Russia should never fight with each other. I mean, this people share the same values. All the globalist games, we should see through it, learn to see through it, and yeah, stand together.
So I'm very optimistic about the future
Me
because I
too.
think I think we can look back and we can say we've got something great here. We can be inspired by what we have, and we can, even though we've lost a lot of ground to the globalists,
Yeah,
we can. I mean, Trump showed how quickly we can regain ground, and we
yeah,
can regain it again. We can triumph again, and I think our heritage, our inheritance, is so wonderful that people will be motivated to stand up and defend it
yeah,
and keep it to the future.
yeah. True. I look optimistic as well. Yeah, I think it's the final push, and they have nothing to do more. And the
Mm.
patriot movement should grow in numbers. And you said there's so many good examples now in Europe. Cool. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's a brilliant interview, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll just thank you for that. And I'll just stop recording.